All right, here we go. Diane, do you want to go ahead and do a roll?
Yes, sir. Creamer,
Present.
Gregg,
Present.
Alter, here. Hernkane,
Here.
Lewis,
Here.
Littman,
Here.
Lombardi, Starrett,
Here.
and Barrett.
Present.
9 present.
All right, thank you. As long as it doesn't bother anyone tonight, I would like to change up the order. And I was thinking, why don't we just go ahead and have the budget discussion up front? We do have some people that have called in just to participate in that. And we can have that, and if they want to go on with their evening, they can. Unless anyone has any objections to that. Lori Katagides-Boron, do we have you on?
Yes, I'm here.
And do we have somebody on from the auditor's office?
Yes, this is Debbie Bong.
Okay, just in case questioning can go either way. It's nice to have both of you here. All right, Lori, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you. And let's hear from who you have. And like I said in the past, they were able to share with us some of their accomplishments. So the department heads can feel free to speak to those accomplishments, what they're proud of and what they foresee coming in the new year. And then if council has any questions, we can ask. We reiterate that, the department heads can try to speak to their department, but if it's overall policy, that would be more of an administrative decision. Direct that to Lori or the mayor or the safety service director. But okay, Lori, go right ahead.
Ed, excuse me, can I interrupt real quick?
Yeah.
Can I go ahead and get a count of administration, a roll call?
Sure, go right ahead.
Thank you. Mayor Kathy Catazero Perry,
Good evening.
Safety Service Director Barb Sylvester,
Present.
Auditor Jane Ferrero, Chief Deputy Auditor Debbie Bonk,
I'm present.
Law Director Justin Richard, Chief Counsel Bill Bartos,
Present.
Chief Engineer David Kroc, Jason Popeil, Community Development Director Samantha Walters.
Here.
And I do see Greg McCune. Are you representing the engineering department, Greg?
I am present.
Thank you. Economic Development Director David Maley.
Present.
Parks and Rec Steve Pedro. Joe Pape.
Here.
Okay. Joe Pape. Gary Lowry. Maud Slagle. Keith Mosier. Chief Bergasser.
Good evening.
Income Tax Budget Director Lori Katagides-Boron.
Present.
I don't think wastewater's here. Terry Argent.
Present.
And is there any administration that I've missed? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm here also, Ed. I just got my volume on. My grandson turned it off. Sorry.
No problem. All right, Lori, go right ahead.
All right, good evening, everybody. Tonight, to talk about their particular departments and to field any questions you may have, we have Greg McHugh from the engineering department. We have Chief Bergasser from the fire department, and we have Terry Argent from the health department. So I'm just going to do it in alphabetical order. So I am going to start with Greg in engineering.
Thanks, Lori.
You're welcome.
Good evening, council. Appreciate it. I just want to give you just a little bit of background on some of the projects that we completed this year. We're really excited about the downtown streetscape project. Everything's looking very nice downtown. We had 2 major resurfacing contracts. Most of you driving around town, you'll notice a lot of paving being done, numerous catch basin rebuilds as part of that, curb ramps, the ADA ramps that are being taken care of. We've done some target area street resurfacing and Erie Street South resurfacing. We were able to start some underdrain projects in the St. Andrews Estates in the Spring Hill area. We're looking forward to starting the next phases here. We're just getting contracts signed. So those will be happening here before the end of the year. We're also able to put out 3 catch basin programs to take care of some of those bad catch basins that are out there and bring that infrastructure up to, good repair. So we're excited about that. We also, with downtown here around City Hall, you'll notice the Duncan Plaza project is kicked off. We're really excited to see that come about. And we're also working on the ADA restroom project, bringing those restrooms here in City Hall municipal building up to ADA standards. Just some little things that we finished up this year. We're doing some parking lots, the North Avenue and Erie Street and the Erie Street and Tremont parking lots. Thanks to our street department, they were able to go in there and resurface those. We were able to add some new striping and new lighting as part of that. We're also doing some pavement marking, which had just finished up in the various streets and also at 23rd Street, Northwest and Lincoln Way. We also have several subdivisions. The Westbrook Estates, there's quite a few homes being built back there. We're planning and review of Kenyon Creek, a new phase of Augusta Lakes off Richville, and the Villa Soul development off Hills and Dales. We're also looking at the expansion of Shears last year and the Phoenix Avenue extension. That was a big project. And then various utilities doing upgrades in the area, the Walnut Hills area for Aqua, the Stoner project, which should kick off next week for Aqua, and then Dominion Energy in the Phillips Campbell area. And then the next project they have is in the Amherst down to First Street, Ohio, Erdel area. So those are some of the big highlights that we had this year. I don't know if does anybody have any questions or comments. I could take those.
Yes, Greg. So going into next year, I'm just, I'm looking at this, and it looks like a focus is going to be, we got Castle West, the $100,000 for them to get started on that need. It looks like you have St. Andrews Drainage Phase 2 also in there. So those are some targets that we're hoping to hit in 2021.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that last part, Mr. Lewis.
So those are some targeted projects for 21 then?
Those are 2 of the projects we have, yes, targeted for next year.
Okay, and then we have 60,000 for the storm roadway repairs. Is that for almost like, I don't want to say discretionary, but when we have those emergency situations pop up?
That is correct. And actually, that worked out well for us this year. When we bid out these road resurfacing projects, we came across, and people weren't aware of it, we weren't either. 7th Street was on the list to be paved this year. We actually found that we had a storm sewer collapse in the middle of that. So we were able to take some of that money and go there and repair 2 catch basins and the pipe across the road. And that's been the case in several times. But yes, we do use that to, do those storm sewer repairs or roadway repairs.
All right, and then are you able to speak to service and contracts? It was last year over 500,000, but this year you're only thinking you're going to need 145. Was there a project or something that influenced that from year to year?
There was a change in our services and contracts account. I could let Debbie Bonk speak on that, but the money has been moved into a capital improvement project. The money that was set aside last year was in our services and contracts. And for the auditor's purposes, they had asked that those be put into capital repairs accounts.
So there's no decrease in work that you're doing. It was just placed somewhere else.
Correct.
All right. Does anyone else from council have any questions or discussion points for this? Mr. Gregg?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. First of all, Greg, I want to thank you on behalf of the citizens for all the work that you and your department does for the city and making it look nice and upgrading all the projects and so forth. My question is, I was talking to a business owner not too long ago, and they had some concerns about some of the items from the last phase of streetscape not being totally completed. Has that, where does that stand? Have all those punch items been completed yet?
I know they haven't, but I would defer to Mr. Bartos on that.
Okay,
That's part of ongoing litigation that we have now.
I see. Okay. Mr. Bartos, can you speak to that at all?
Mr. Gregg, at this time, I would say that in a public setting, it probably would not be best to discuss that, but as Mr. McHugh mentioned, it is an ongoing matter. It's not the subject of litigation at this point, but it is definitely something we're working through, all of our contractual options and remedies, and doing everything we can to address all options. So I think that's the best I can say at this point in a public meeting setting. I think at this point, potentially an executive session could be feasible given where we are. So if you would like to discuss it further at an executive session, I think we have reached a point where we could justify that at this time.
Okay, I understand. I think we can talk about that in in the future or near future, hopefully. The other question I had was the next phase of streetscape, I believe, and this is back to Greg, I guess, covers from, correct me if I'm wrong, Greg, from First Street east up to 4th Street.
That's correct, Mr. Gregg, and also the intersection of First Northwest and First Southwest.
Okay, so is anything from First Southwest towards the viaduct on Lincoln Way being included? It's been mentioned to me the sidewalks don't look in great shape. The light posts, need painted. Is any of that work being considered?
In front of Margaritas and I think it's Tiger Rags in that area. That's included in that. And also across the street at First Commonwealth Bank, I believe there are 3 street light poles that need to be changed to the decorative poles.
Okay, is that,
So
and that's in, I'm sorry, what was that?
those would also be included as part of that plan.
Okay, and so that's in the next phase.
Correct.
Okay. That's all I have. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And I think, Mr. Gregg, you bring up an excellent point with those, and actually, President Eisnick, I would say that we probably need to call an executive session at the next council meeting for Monday.
That's fine.
I know that it takes a little bit more work than just calling one on a fly, so with us being virtual. So we should probably do that next week to get those details. And the only other question that it would bring me to is, why am I just now hearing about this? If this was something that was developing, council should have been apprised that there was a situation. Ms. Creamer.
Yes, thank you. Mr. McHugh, have you compiled your list for 2021 of streets to be repaved?
No, we have not. We had the PCR ratings that we just received here in October. We have not proceeded with a list yet. We're working on a preliminary list, Until the budget number is, passed, then we'll work towards getting that, the streets list developed.
Okay, so we can submit suggestions to your department during this time?
We would take those, yes. We'd take every street into consideration.
All right, thank you.
Ms. Littman?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I do have just a couple of questions just to make sure that I am understanding our budget listing that Ms. Boron provided to us correctly. As the budget for the engineering department states, supplemental expense budget year to date for 2020 shows the 838,500 that is not included in next year's budget. So I can assume that all of the funding that is available from grants, et cetera, of 838,500 is allocated in the 2020 budget. Therefore, zero, as I'm looking at this budget, is allocated out of our 2021 budget. I would just like clarification of that, please.
Yes, those are the funds that we appropriated for the Duncan Plaza renovation, and those funds are on a PO, so they are already allocated from what we appropriated this year, and they will be there for our use next year in 2021.
Okay, thank you very much. Second item I would like to address is obviously we've had, as they've stated on this listing, Lincoln Way and 23rd Street intersection, the pavement markings, et cetera, have been allocated and completed in this budget. I would like to have the Safety Service Director and or the Mayor at some point in this work session address what has been done and why in that area. I know, Mr. Lewis, this is probably not the area, but I did want to make sure that I voiced that Barb and or Kathy hopefully would be available at some point that you believe to be appropriate to address those questions regarding that specific intersection.
Yes, I'd already messaged. Yeah, I'd already messaged the mayor earlier, and I believe we'll probably just bring it up there in streets and highways.
Okay.
Okay, that will be fine. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. McHugh. Lori.
Yes, now Chief Vergasser is on the line for the fire department. You already have a listing of what accomplishments are for 2020. Chief Vergasser will also talk as to where the focus is for 2021 and what they have in line at the fire department going forward. Chief Vergasser?
Good evening, everyone. First of all, I apologize. I had to take down my video. I seem to be having a problem with bandwidth, and I hope everyone can hear me. So I'd like to talk a little bit about 2020 and then move into 2021. 2020 was really a strange year for us and also a busy one. Regarding the pandemic, we played a role in ensuring that the EOP, Emergency Operations Plan, was activated, and that incident action plans, or IAPs, were completed for every operational period from the pandemic's inception up through today. The incident action plan provides instructions on staffing, sanitation, best practices for service, and also contingencies, and it served us very well. Our EMS system has transported nearly 500 COVID positive patients, and to date, none of our fire department employees have contracted the disease. So we're currently in our 20th operational period. We posted 8 weekly IAPs and 12 biweekly IAPs, or incident action plans. We're scheduled to meet this week for the 21st operational period, which begins Friday. So obviously the city continues to operate under a declared state of emergency, along with the county, the state, and the nation. Regarding our capital improvements, our buildings are slowly aging, and we've made some improvements to each station. At Station 1, we've repaired the concrete and the underlayment for about a third of our front vehicle entrance. We've replaced exterior lighting, and through the graciousness of the street department and also the engineer's office, we were able to get some asphalt grindings to repair the back parking lot. As it sits, we're in the process of replacing a 50-year-old generator, and we're trying to move it out of the building for safety purposes. At Station 2, we repaired exterior lighting. We manufactured a gear storage room and a fitness room. At Station 3, we placed a storage shed in the rear and did some landscape. Station 4, we replaced windows, placed a storage shed in the rear of the building, replaced the stove and the dryer. So additionally, and because our employees are our greatest asset and their safety is paramount, we purchased ballistic helmets and supplemented their body armor. We purchased 4 thermal imaging cameras, and we're in the process of replacing turnout gear for those without second sets or those sets who are out of date, which is 10 years. Any questions so far? So regarding 2021 in terms of capital improvements, we need to purchase an ambulance to stay on track with our vehicle replacement program. And we also need to consider purchasing either an engine or a ladder truck to replace engine 4. So moving to other areas, for the first time in history of the Massillon Fire Department, the promotional process consisted of an assessment center along with a written test instead of just a written examination for the position of captain, and it'll continue through for assistant chief and also chief. I really appreciate the administration, the Civil Service Commission, and the union for all of their collective efforts at recognizing this method as the best method to determine department line officers and supervisors. Included in the budget is a plan to have captains at Station 1 in addition to the outside stations in order to provide additional oversight and accountability on the fire ground, where situations can quickly be dynamic, as well as car accidents where sizing up and safety issues could make the difference between the life and death of those injured as well as those of our firefighters. In terms of succession planning for my position, I believe the Civil Service Commission will be announcing the process as soon as next week. From an operational standpoint, our run volume is down slightly from last year because of coronavirus impact during the months of April, May, and June. But of late, our run volume continues to steadily climb back to the previous year's levels. Currently, we sit at 145 calls behind last year, and it's interesting that we didn't see the sharp decrease in run volume that many other fire department agencies did. For example, Jackson Township is down over 800 runs from this time last year, and again, we're at 145 behind. We've received many grants this year for training and equipment, including grants for CPR assist devices, as well as regionalized training equipment. Many thanks to you all for having the foresight to allow us to host a grant program to purchase a flammable liquid gas device to simulate as little as a backyard propane tank fire, all the way up through to a flammable gas tractor trailer fire. Again, these situations are low frequency, high injury risk incidents, and we're able to offer safety training to every firefighter in Stark County as a result. We've already had the simulator for 3 days in partners with Jackson Township on joint training exercise. That was last month. And I can't overstate that every firefighter in this county who trains with this device owes you a debt of gratitude for making it possible. And lastly, our department lost a great deal of expertise with the retirements of Captain Don Smith and Captain Chuck Floyd. Captain Aaron Flint and Captain Matt Podlager have replaced them in rank, and Captain Chuck Gano has replaced Captain Smith as the head of fire prevention. I could go on, but if there are any questions or items that you have for the budget, I'll just answer them to the best of my ability. Thanks for listening.
Any members of council? Ms. Littman.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I did notice that there is about $125,000, and I'll say reduction in the expense for, it says comp paid. Is that unemployment compensation, or what exactly is that referring to? And why was there a $125,000 reduction in that line item?
So what we've noticed, Mrs. Littman, is that comp pay firefighters can carry up to 240 hours of comp time, and they earn that through overtime. Most of the time, back when I started and all the way up through until about 6 years ago, your pension was based on your top 3 years. Well, the pension board changed their metric, and now it's the top 5 years. And so we find that a lot of people, instead of turning overtime into comp time, they take it out as overtime for pay because pension's taken out, and that increases their pension by a little bit. So what we've done is we actually put $20,000 more into the overtime paid because we think that's going to be where it's at. And again, we hired 3 firefighters this year. We're up to 55, so overtime is a little bit less than before. They're not cashing in the comp time as much as they have in the past.
Thank you for that explanation.
Sure.
Anyone else? All right, thank you, Chief Burgesser. As always, thank you for your creativity. You always find alternative funding streams for major purchases and expanding the department and getting it get what you need. So we still appreciate that.
Thank you.
Ms. Boron.
Yes, now we have the health department, and I just want to make everybody aware, because I know we have a few new council members. The health department does not sit in the 1100. It sits in 1235, and that is per request from the state auditors. So we have Terry Argent on the line. We all know what great work Terry's done this year, especially around the virus. So she's going to tell us a little bit about what the health department's going to look for going forward and what some of our focuses will be. Terry?
Yes, thank you for having me. Some of our accomplishments this year, and one I have to especially brag about, is with all the extra work we've had with COVID response, which has been quite a lot more than we've ever had before, we were able to submit all of our documentation for accreditation. So we hope that happens this year. It's just a matter of when we get on their schedule, so I'm very proud of that. Some more accomplishments from this year. Our WIC program increased of over 100 active clients, and that is increasing all the time. Our staff has been working around the clock and 7 days a week on contact tracing and COVID monitoring. And we brought in over $203,000 in grants for COVID response so far this year. Going into next year, we've already been told by the governor that we are going to receive more grant money for contract tracing, which is ramping up very quickly right now, and also for vaccine planning. Next year, we will have a COVID vaccine, so we're starting planning and response so that we're ready for that when it hits, so we can get every citizen vaccinated who wants a vaccine for next year. And we also continue stocking up on our PPE so that we're ready for that, for the vaccine clinics and anything else that might be needed. We also this year were able to get some new computers so that if we have to work next year, we can work remotely from home if we need to. And we've got some new phones for that also. And that's pretty much what I have. If anybody has any questions.
Ms. Littman.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. Terry, I do have a question just as far as process. I know that I had made the Safety Service Director aware of a business in town that residents had called me about that were not following the COVID restriction protocol. So I guess I'd like to know what your process is when those types of complaints come in. and what is being done then if they are not compliant with those restrictions or conversations that make them aware of that.
Sure, thank you. Usually we get notified by phone, someone call in a phone and will call in a complaint or email a complaint, or they can also go on the Restart Stark website and file a complaint. Then we take those complaints and we process those. We either go by phone call or mostly we visit in person. We visit the area that they're not doing so. If we try to educate them on what needs to be done, and most of the time we find out that they do comply after we've been there. Now, if it gets to a serious situation, then we do turn them over to the governor's office for the governor's enforcement committee. But that's mostly for things like bars that aren't doing what they're supposed to be doing after hours.
Okay, this complaint was not a bar, it was a business. So I just wanted to make sure, has that been addressed out here on the west side?
I'm not quite sure, but we go to almost every complaint we have. So
Okay.
if it was a food service, then it would have been visited for sure.
Okay, I will contact you after this meeting just to make sure that we're on the same page.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
My question would be probably for Kathy, or the mayor, I'm sorry. You're still on, Mayor?
I sure am.
I know that it's been a crazy year, but has there been any more discussion or thought about finding a more permanent location so that we could not have to necessarily pay rent for the health department?
That will be a major focus for us, Mr. Lewis, for next year. We did contemplate using 830 Amherst, but we've decided against that, the cost. And we also don't want to have to be in the real estate business because we would only be taking a fourth of that building and then we'd have to rent out the rest. And so we feel that there are plenty of places, and that will be one of our focuses for 2021, is to look for a great place for them that has ample parking, easy access. And we've been asked to keep it on the southeast side because many of the southeast residents go to the health department. So that is something that we'll be doing in 2021. With COVID, you know, we're very happy of all of the accomplishments all the departments have been able to do this year, because having a pandemic that we've not had in over 100 years has been a challenge for everyone. And so we will be looking at that in the new year.
Thank you. I just know that the church has been pretty good to us, and it is an ideal spot. But obviously, $40,000, $41,000 budgeted for next year. You know, that money could definitely go to other services if it was available. Ms. Lippman?
Yes, I just have one more question of Terry Argent. Do you feel that we are able to accomplish what we need to in the health department with the number of full-time and part-time individuals that we currently have employed?
Yes, thank you for that question. We are holding our own, doing our regular jobs as well as contract tracing. We may have to bring on another contract tracer. There is money in the grants for that. And hopefully next year we may be able to get another sanitarian. Our sanitarian's stretched right now so far with lots of new programs through the state, as well as she is doing some contract tracing as well as her regular jobs. So hopefully coming up soon, maybe next year, we can get another sanitarian.
And both of those positions would be covered by COVID funds?
Part of the sanitarian will be covered by COVID funds, and all of the contract tracer would be covered, yes.
Thank you.
All right, Lori, do you have anything else you want to add this evening? Okay. I will say that in 2 weeks, we will have special, I hate calling it special, but Finance Committee will be meeting at 6:30. Diane, if you could make sure that that information is set up and set out. We will have the Parks and Recreation Department, Steve Pedro will be present for that one to discuss the budget of the Parks and Rec Department.
Okay.
Bill Bartos.
Mr. Lewis,
Yes, Ms. Eisner.
Yes.
they're meeting at 6:30. Is that not our normal council time?
No, because it's 5 Mondays. So in 2 weeks, we wouldn't have a meeting at all.
Excuse me, I'm sorry. I thought you meant next week. Thank you.
No problem.
Mr.
Hey, Bill.
Lewis,
Yes.
just wanted to inform you that Mr. Lombardi will be recording that meeting for you as I will be on vacation.
All right. Make sure he's well trained.
I'm working on it right now as we speak.
I'm sorry, Mr. Bartos.
Yes.
I want to give Mr. Richard an opportunity to speak about the law department at that same meeting. Could you pass that along to him?
Sure.
So that will be what that meeting is. I am reaching out to the courts tomorrow, and I'll be reaching out to Maud Slagle, the treasurer, to see if they would want to come to council and speak about their particular budgets as well. With that said, I just got a text from Lori. I think she was having technical difficulties.
Yes, I was.
Oh, there she is. She's back.
Yeah, I couldn't get on. I didn't know that until Barb had told me. I do apologize. I just want to reiterate to everybody, any questions around the budget or any questions around the department, please feel free to reach out. You can either call me or email me, and we will get those questions to you. So I just want to reiterate that for everybody as we talk through the actual budget going forward at the council meeting. Thank you, Mr. Lewis.
And Ed?
Yes.
Sometime back, Johnny Meyer submitted his budget in writing. Did you all receive that?
We did.
Okay.
I know I did.
Okay. Just one.
Yeah, I'll just be reaching out to them to see if they want to speak to us about anything.
Okay.
Ms. Littman?
Mr. Lewis, would we be able to address the, I think it was a proposed request for legislation that is needed in order to continue with our virtual meetings,
Yes,
assuming that Mr. Bartos will need to be, excuse me, I'm sorry.
Yes, that would be during the committee of the whole section at the end of the meeting. We have another piece of legislation request at the same time.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Anything else related to the budget? All right, community development.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I just have 2 pending pieces of legislation right now, and those are for the grants for Lepley and Company, a $10,000 grant, and Legacy Project, a $5,000 grant. Hopefully everybody did receive from Mr. Maley last week the score sheet that we use to determine what the amount of grant we were looking to award. Any questions on these right now? Okay, seeing none, I plan on probably just taking this until 3rd reading in case there's any other community comments. Other than that, I have nothing further.
I'll just add that the finance pieces that coincide will just coincide until passage or not passage, whatever the case may be.
Okay.
Environmental.
Nothing from environmental.
Health and welfare.
Hello, Mr. Lewis. I would like to turn this meeting, or this discussion over to Mr. Hurricane. A couple weeks ago, he brought up something under health and welfare. We were not able to have a meeting last week because of our length of the meeting. Mr. Hurricane, would you like to just briefly talk about what you were interested in so that we can get that on the record?
Sure. what I'd like to discuss at a later time would be our committee to look at the matter of animal control through the lens of what the council rules say is under the purview of our committee, especially nuisances, public health, things of that nature. We've talked about this at great length this year. I still think there are some different avenues that we can approach. When it comes to animal control, maybe even more of an administrative position, similar to code enforcement, not necessarily a police officer position. I guess I would ask that we set us that's the gist of it. I would like to ask that, I won't ask for another committee meeting, but maybe at our next work session on Monday the 30th during the health and welfare part of the meeting, and maybe we move to the end, we can discuss this at more length, and I will have more things to say at that time. But that's in a nutshell what I'd like to discuss through this committee is some alternatives to animal control compared to how we've done things in the past.
Thank you, Mr. Hurricane. That's all I
Thank
have,
you, Mrs.
Mr. Lewis.
Okay, thank you. Nothing else for health and welfare then?
Mr. Lewis?
Yes.
I would just ask that, and Mrs. Halter is online as well, that as I mentioned, maybe on the 30th at that work session, in lieu of having a committee meeting, we set aside some time maybe toward the end for our committee to discuss this matter at greater length.
Yeah, we can just rearrange the order then and just get health and welfare at the end of that meeting.
If that's fine with Mrs. Halter, that's fine with me.
That's fine.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Parks and Rec?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have 2 items of business. The first is please prepare an ordinance for the Director of Public Service and Safety to advertise for and receive sealed bids and enter into a contract upon award and approval of the Board of Control with the lowest and best bidder for Legends mower lease. This item was approved by the Park and Rec Board by a 5-0 vote. It does have emergency language, and this is in regards to the Legends mower lease. And Director Steve Pedro is on the phone that he can speak to this in more depth. Mr. Pedro?
Hello, everybody. Thanks for having me tonight. The reason the emergency language is on there is just so we can start looking around for this. Our current lease is up on February 1st for 6 pieces of equipment that maintain the course. We have some shopping to do, so to speak. And, this is the cost-effective way for our course to have up-to-date equipment. I'd love to buy equipment every 5 or 6 years when you need it. But we've been doing this. This will be our 2nd time. It has worked out for us. The advantage of the lease program that we're on now is the maintenance of our equipment. We don't have a lot of maintenance costs for those equipment, just, because it's in a lease instead of a buy. The money that we have left over each year, which isn't always a lot, some are better than others. But we use that for the improvements on the course. So that's the reason we'd like to do this. And if you have any questions, I'll be glad to ask them or answer them.
Ms. Littman?
Thank you, Ms. Creamer. Mr. Pedro, you had mentioned there are 6 pieces of equipment. Are you indicating that we are buying 6 mowers of the exact same type and kind, or do you look for different types of mowers for different areas of the course?
No, thank you for asking that. There are 2 greens mowers, 2 fairway mowers, 1 124-inch rough mower, and a sand rake or Sand Pro, if you're familiar with that. Those are the 6 pieces that we'd like to lease to replace what we have now.
Okay, I would like to ask, so you're replacing exactly what we have with new equipment, and do you typically do this all at the same time? And I guess I would ask, why wouldn't we have a rotating format where we would be buying a new piece of equipment maybe each year rather than 6 pieces in any given year?
We own about 10 units that are aging as we speak. These units are probably the most important ones, obviously for the greens, the fairways, the bunkers, and the big rough unit. We just haven't been in a position to purchase, but this has, as I said, has been pretty effective with the lease program. The maintenance of them the equipment has been a lot lower than if we purchased it outright. These mowers do take a beating, during the season. They're out there every day for 4, 5, 6 hours each in constant running. So we put a lot of hours on them. That's the one reason we haven't done that, Mrs. Littman. We've talked about it. We've tried to look into it. And, it may be a way we can go in the future. We need to have more good years like we've had the last 3 years to be able to do something like that.
Could you give us an estimate on what the 6 pieces of equipment would cost?
Approximately, the lease now is about $250,000 for 5 years. This one will probably be approximately the same, or probably a little bit more, to be honest with you, with the new costs. We haven't put it out yet, so we don't have the exact numbers yet.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Does anyone else have any other questions regarding this request of legislation? Okay, my second item of business is please prepare an ordinance to amend ordinance 142-2016 for rate changes for the Ledsons Golf Course. This was also approved by the Park and Rec Board with a 5-0 vote. It also has emergency language, and we did all receive a document with the rate changes. Director Pedro, would you like to go into more depth regarding these changes?
Yes, if you have that document, I can go through the changes. If you look at the 2021 golf rates go over the weekend and holiday with 18 holes with a cart. Our current rate is $44 for 2020. We'd like to extend that to $46. And then straight across from that, the 9 holes with a cart after 1 p.m. is $17. We want to move that to $18. And then 18 holes with a cart on a weekend and holiday is $29. We want to change that to $30. Then down at the senior rates, the 18 holes with a cart up $1 from 23 to 24. The weekend and holiday rate from $36 to $38. 9 holes with a cart on weekend and holiday from $17 to $18. And then on 18 with a cart to $29, or I'm sorry, from $29 to $30. As you can see, these rates, it's a $1 and $2 rate increase on these increases. I can tell you we are still, we're not the lowest around, but I don't know how many of you golf, but I think we're lower than a lot of the other ones that compete with us. And I think we're doing a heck of a lot better job right now, attracting people. We have 29 leagues this year. And, nobody complained about the prices, and we've talked to the people. They're aware of what we're going to do. And some people come and actually ask us why we don't charge more. And, well, now we're going to charge a little bit more. There are 2 more rates down at the bottom there on Memorial Day, Labor Day, and the 4th of July. It was $28 currently. We want to change that to $30 for those holidays. And on Father's Day as well, from $28 to $30. I'll be glad to answer any questions if you have them right now.
Anyone? Ms. Littman?
Thank you, Ms. Creamer. Mr. Pedro, can you give us an idea of what other courses we are comparable to in our direct area as far as cost-wise?
As I said, I think we're lower than most. The Elms, you can obviously look at that one. Lion's Den is actually higher than us. Chippewa is higher. The Quarry is definitely higher. They did change ownership and lowered their rates some, but for the type of course we have, the 27 holes, I don't know that there's anybody that in the immediate area that is close to us. Has what we have.
Have we been able to reopen our restaurant and food services or drink services, etc.?
Yes, we did. We have been serving food all summer. That has gone very well. You know, we had a couple complaints. Sometimes people walk in without their mask, and we just, you know, we ask them to put it on. You know, if they say they can't wear one because of health reasons, we can't challenge that. But I can tell you there have been a few complaints, but for the most part, they've been doing pretty good down there.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, thank you, Steve, for this information.
You're welcome.
And Mr. Lewis, that's all I have for Park and Rec.
I'm sorry, Jill, I need verbals if you want it on the agenda for Monday.
Thank you, Diane. I give my verbal for both.
Diane, this is Linda Littman. I give my verbal for both as well.
Mike Gregg, I give my verbal for both also.
Thank you.
All right. First off, I don't know why my camera's not working, so I apologize. Just stopped on me. Police and fire.
I do not have anything this evening, Mr. Lewis.
Public utilities.
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I have nothing.
Rules and courts.
Nothing from rules and courts this evening.
Hold up a second. I have a question that might regard you. Just trying to pull it up. Where is it at? I'm sorry. Mr. Bartos.
Yes.
We have in here please prepare legislation to approve the current replacement pages to the Massillon codified ordinances. And we have that under committee of the whole. I know in the past that is how we've handled such things, but in reviewing the rules of council, it seems like it's very specific on how committee of the whole is ran. And it would seem that to have legislation go through a committee of the whole might not be proper. And I was wondering if this particular request would be best served under rules and courts instead.
That sounds, I mean, that sounds reasonable to me.
I just say that because when you read the rules, it talks about when you go into committee of the whole, the president's supposed to step down and the pro tem is supposed to take the seat. And it just seems like its intent was originally for something else. We might have to clean that up, but just for the sake of our rules, why not just throw this in a committee and make sure we're on the side of caution?
Right.
Do you have an objection?
And I think that
Mr. Gregg?
No, I have no objection.
Mrs. Eisnick, do you have an objection to that?
I do not have any objections to that.
Ms. Lippman, you have a question? You're muted, Ms. Lippman.
I'm sorry, would this be pertaining to the request that we actually submitted for consideration as far as either amending, updating, or just for further clarification of some of the council rules? Is this where you're suggesting that these edits go under rules and courts versus committee of the whole? Or is this something else that you're referring to?
I'm just referring to in our list of legislation requests for tonight, we have one that we get every year. It says, please prepare legislation to approve the current replacement pages to the Massillon codified ordinances. It's just basically what it's doing is just taking whatever we've done this year and putting it into the codified ordinances. We've always done it on the committee of the whole. It just doesn't necessarily seem appropriate. It seems more of like a rules and courts kind of thing. And that I was just recommending that it get moved over to that committee.
Okay, so this would not be where we submitted those requests to the law director for consideration in changing or clarifying, making some edits to those rules. This is just what.
That's not what I'm referencing now.
Okay, all right, thank you.
All right, Mr. Gregg, do you want to pick up on this? replacement pages piece that I just gave everybody the review of. You're muted, Mr. Gregg.
Yes, I had a couple constituents barking a couple seconds ago. You talking about what you just now moved to my committee?
Yes.
Sure. So I was assume this started with the law department. Mr. Bartos, do you have anything to speak to regarding this?
Chairman Gregg, I believe this may have started with Diane, actually.
Oh, okay.
I could be wrong, but it didn't start with me, so
Okay.
apologize.
Well, as Mr. Lewis mentioned, this is something we do each year. Are there any questions regarding this? Diane, do you have any?
Yes,
Okay,
can I
go
make a
ahead.
statement here? I was just simply, as when I first started, mirroring after what Mary Beth did. But after listening to Mr. Lewis, it seems logical that it would go through rules and courts. But like I said, it just was something that I was doing that she did previously.
Okay.
It always went through the committee of the whole for the last 5 years. But like I said, as Mr. Lewis indicated, it would be more logical to go through the Rules and Courts Committee.
Right. Does anybody have any questions regarding it? So Diane, you'll make that change for the next meeting?
Yes, sir.
And I noticed this has emergency language. Is that, I mean, Mr. Lewis, do you have any comment on that? Do we need emergency language on this?
Unless Diane has an opinion on it, I'm assuming you need it to be effective by the end of the year. Is that correct, Miss Rowland?
Yes, that is. And this ordinance actually comes from Walter Drain Company. When they send me the replacement page, they've already typed it all up. So I mean, they're saying
took emergency language off of it, which we can do, but you would have to have it passed by the 1st of December so that she has the 30-day window of it to go into effect.
Correct.
Okay. Well, I have no problem with having merged language. I was just asking. Mrs. Lippman, you have a question?
I do. This smells a lot like the issue that I had just mentioned earlier, where those submissions went to the law director to then approve and go to you, Mr. Gregg, as Rules and Courts. If there is, could Mr. Bartos address whether those requests have been reviewed and submitted to Mr. Gregg and his committee to be part of this change in legislation?
Mr. Bartos, I can answer that for her, if you don't mind.
Sure.
As I stated, when you were discussing submitting changes, they had to be passed by October. So anything that gets changed after that, we will have to resubmit that to Walter Drain, because this is done from November to October of every year. So anything that was passed as of the 16th of October is included in the changes. Anything after that that was not an ordinance and passed by council is not included in the changes.
Mr. Bartos, can I ask you where those requests went from your office?
Yes, Chairman Gregg? Chairman Gregg?
Yes.
Yes, okay. I actually, Councilwoman Lippman, I actually just made a note to follow up with Chairman Gregg tomorrow after the meeting, but since you brought it up, I believe we have sufficient, at least drafts of the proposed amendments to at least initiate a committee discussion. And so the question would be if the Rules and Courts Committee would like to have a separate committee meeting, or to have a discussion on a set committee night. And so I can get those to Chairman Greg this week, and we can, commence as he and the Rules and Courts Committee would like.
Mr. Bartos, how many changes or drafts are we talking about?
Well, I believe that the main discussion we had was on the rule concerning the discussion or the establishment of the committees, and so I have a draft of that and prepared, and so that's one, and there's some other rules as well that perhaps would kind of go well with the discussion. So it would be a fairly decent discussion if you're looking for time. If you're looking at amount of time, it might be 15, 20 minutes might be the amount of time.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Lewis, do you feel that that's something that we can handle during regular work session? Or do we need a separate committee meeting, time-wise?
I had this conversation earlier with a member of council, and really it's, whatever the committee decides, we sometimes will hold an earlier committee meeting if we think it's going to last a while and we don't want to go too late into the night. So if that's the case, if you're wanting to be cautious about how late in the night we go, then hold it early. If you think it can handle fairly quickly, then just have it at the regular time.
All right, well, then let's plan on, unless there's an objection, let's plan on a committee meeting at 6 o'clock. That'll give us an extra half hour. It sounds like that would be sufficient. Do you agree, Mr. Bartos?
I think that should be sufficient for at least an initial discussion. I mean, this is just a draft, and so we're not talking about prepared legislation or anything. We're just talking about initial drafts and getting additional discussion and opinions from council. Once again, these are council rules, so wanted to get additional input. We got the first round of input, and as I worked on that, I realized that there was some potential conflict with some of the thoughts and potential ideas, and so came up with the best draft I could. Wanted to discuss with everyone at this point with this draft, and then we can go from there. So I think long story short, I think a half hour will be great.
Okay, rules and committee members, rules and courts committee members, any input on that as far as time and having an earlier meeting? Everybody okay with that? So can we, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm sorry, Mr. Craig. I was just going to say I was okay with that.
Okay. So, Mr. Lewis, can we, or I guess Diane, can we plan on a Rules and Courts Committee meeting 6 o'clock, 2 weeks from tonight before the next work session?
So that will be November the 30th?
Wait a minute. When is our next regular work session?
November 30th.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Then obviously we'll keep the emergency language on it.
Okay. As far as this request, am I getting verbals?
Mr. Gregg, can I make a comment quick?
Yes, Ms. Sarah, I'm sorry. I saw you raising your hand. I just couldn't quite find the time to let you in. Go ahead.
Well, I just want to make it clear that I think we're confusing two issues on this piece of legislation, this request before us. The legislation request before us right now is literally just updating the online codified ordinances and like the actual book of codified ordinances we have already passed this year. So things we have done and passed. Ms. Lippman, what you're talking about is you want to do some changes to council rules, which will eventually have to be updated in the codified ordinances if they're passed through council. So just because we pass them, they may not enter into the book till the end of the year, but they're still legislation and they're still enacted in a way. So, they're two very different things. This is just kind of the pass through, administrative stuff of updating the online and the actual hardcover book of things we've already done throughout the year. And I give my verbal.
Thank you, Ms. Sarah, for clarifying that. Yes, I give verbal also on the update to the codified ordinances for the agenda for our next meeting.
I am aware these are two different things. I just wanted to make sure that since your committee was still in session here, that we would be also brought back into that prior discussion of those rule edits.
Right.
Thank you.
Mr. Hurricane?
I give my verbal as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else from Rules and Courts Committee members? All right, seeing none, that's all we have for Rules and Courts this evening. Thank you.
Streets and highways.
There's nothing pending, just the second readings.
Can we get an update on 23rd Street West side, Mr. Thayer, from the administration?
Is there someone in administration can give us an update on that?
Sure. Good evening, everyone. There have been 9 accidents at the 23rd Street area, and I'm pulling this out right now. Greg, it's very hard to explain over the phone. It's much easier to see a visual. But over the years, there have been 9 accidents there, so it warranted a signal. And so due to the traffic pattern, you must turn right onto Grosvenor if you are in the right-hand lane, because the road changes from 4 lanes to 3 lanes. Signs are there and present. We have marked the roads and even had additional markings of the roads to help our community with this change. Those 9 accidents, I will clarify, were in 1 year's time. And so that's why you see some comments on social media, but this is warranted and must be done. A signal can go in after 5 accidents, and we are up to 9 in 1 year's time. So if you have further questions, Greg may still be on the line. He can help me out with this. But again, he drew it for me today to help explain it to everyone this evening. I did answer the concerns on social media and clarify what was happening there and why it was happening. But it is the right traffic pattern that we all must follow now. And our community is a change, and generally no one likes change, but it is for the safety of our community. Do you have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Thayer. I have been asked, the lights have been blinking for the last few days, and I've been asked when that signal, the turn signals themselves, will be up and running.
I will have our safety director answer that question.
Thank you.
Thank you. I can answer that question. They are up and running as of today, this afternoon. We had to coordinate everything together at the same time. The new signs had to be put in. The lane change striping had to be done at the same time, and to get the signals working all at the same time. That did happen, what we thought happened on Friday, and actually in the control box for the traffic fixture, there was actually a faulty wire in it. So that's why, that's what happens. So the right thing did happen. If there is a fault in the control box, it is to go to a blinking, and it did. And so our electricians were out this morning and did have it fixed and found the problem. And so it has been operational then since early afternoon today.
Thank you.
Any other questions concerning that issue?
Mr. Thayer, you do have an old ordinance regarding the sidewalk program?
Yes, that's for second reading, I think.
Third reading.
third reading. Thank you. Any questions on that or comments on that?
Mr. Thayer, if I may, this is the mayor. We've had a lot of great comments about this program, so I think it's going to be so much more usable for our community, and it's not restricted to just residents, and the businesses will be able to, access this program as well. So this is a very exciting program, and we've had good comments on it. Thank you.
Look forward to it. Thank you. Anything else? Mr. Lewis?
All right, that brings up finance. The first piece we have is please prepare legislation appropriate from the unappropriated balance of the Muni Court Special Court Fund 1204, $24,000. This is to pay Massillon Municipal Court share of countywide sieges. Does anyone have any questions or discussion this evening? All right, I'll give my verbal to have this on the agenda.
I give my verbal, Megan Starrett.
Verbal from Mike Gregg.
Thank you.
Next piece is coming from, it's the please prepared ordinance authorizing the Director of Public Service and Safety to enter into the Medical Mutual of Ohio for health insurance for the city employees effective January 1 of 21 through the 31st of December 21. The Healthcare Committee did pass this on the 13th of October to renew with Medical Mutual Health with a rate increase of 2%. Ms. Sylvester, do you want to speak to this at all?
Yes, I can. This is a renewal with Medical Mutual that was presented to the Healthcare Committee, which is made up of city employees, representative of our city unions as well. And this Medical Mutual has provided all of the employees and their families with a very rich plan. There is a very large network in their coverage, and everybody seems to be very satisfied with the benefit of the health insurance. And so, as you previously stated, it was unanimously voted yes to accept Medical Mutual and the very minimal increase.
Any other questions from Finance Committee? All right, I give my verbal.
I give my verbal, Megan Starrett.
Ms. Littman?
Thank you, Mr. Lewis. I just wanted to ask, when we were looking at including our employees to receive a free Parks and Rec gym membership, our hope was to have our health insurance rates be adjusted. And I guess I'm asking, is part of that reason we've only gotten a slight increase due to the fact that we were able to institute that last year, and basically our employees have become, and I'll say, a little more healthy because of the availability of gym membership?
Well, that is a piece of it as well, yes, but there is a lot that goes into a renewal at such a small amount of money. And credit goes to the Healthcare Committee. They have done a great job with that in the negotiations, and all of the employees have done a great job as well. Medical Mutual includes a wellness program, which is EA Wellness, and many of our employees participate in that as well. So we do health checks. They have online services as well. So there are a lot of variables that go into the city being able to get such a reduced amount for a renewal. So there are a lot of factors that go into it. There's a lot of work that goes into these efforts.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregg, do you give your verbal?
I do.
All right. The next piece is please prepare an ordinance providing for the continuation of an existing 0.2% levy on income for the purpose of city street maintenance and repair and the city street department effective January 1 of 22 for 5 years, subject to the approval of the electors of the city of Massillon, and an election to be held on May 4th, 2021. So essentially what this legislation is doing is our current levy, our streets levy, is due to expire at the end of next year. And so we do have to start thinking as a council about whether or not we want to put it back on the ballot for the citizens to vote on again, to see if they want us to have a continuation of that. Mr. Maley, are you wanting to speak to this tonight?
I believe the mayor is going to speak.
All right, thank you.
Hi, good evening, council. Again, this is a very important 0.2%. Without this, we really have only our Target Street money from our CDBG's accounts to use. And so we sent out a few forms for you, some maps for you to look at. Did you all receive those? Do you have those with you tonight?
Yes. Okay,
wonderful. So you can see on one map where the dark black is 2013, 14, 15, and 16. The black is what we were able to pave. In 2012, I can tell you we were only able to use our CDBG funds for pavement, and in 13 as well. It wasn't until we were able to pass the 0.2% and turn that map over, and you can see what we were able to do in black in 17, 18, 19, and 20, which has been a huge improvement from the past. The street numbers that we had from 2012 to 2016 was $2 million. In 2007, that was 4 years, $2 million over 4 years. 2017 was $1.2 million. 2018, $1.9 million. 2019, $5,300,000, and that included the Imagine project. And then 2020, $2,985,000. So 2012 to 2019, we were able to put down $13,633,000 of pavement on our roads. Now, and that's pavement and repairs. I can tell you that with our engineering department and our safety and service director, they have done an outstanding job because throughout your different wards that we've been able to do some neighborhood projects as well. And when I do the state of the city, we'll hit those so that and provide photos so you can see what we are able to do in each neighborhood. But that is in addition to those dollars that we have there. So this street levy is vital that our city have this and approve it. One way that we were able to accomplish this is that everyone was on board. Council president, all 9 members of council, the mayor, and the administration, and we worked together with our community to pass this. There will be the same restrictions to this 0.2% increase. It would go to the street department as we did these past 5 years, and the community can give us a report card, and we would only ask for a 5-year levy again. And then after that, the next mayor will be able to decide if they want to continue the program or not. But I would like to have everyone's support on this. It can only be done if everybody is supportive of it. And with that, I will take questions if you have them.
Mr. Lewis?
I'm sorry, I was muted. I was asking a question. Um, Madam Mayor, it looks like we have two legislation requests tonight. The other one is to place it on the ballot for May 4th, 2021. Is that accurate?
Yes, Mr. Maley worked with the Stark County Board of Elections to make sure what we needed to do. And those are the two legislation requests that we need to pass in order to get everything on the ballot. And we're coming to you now because it gets busy through the holidays. And we want to be able to have all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed because we don't want to make a mistake on this. So we're coming early to get this done to make sure we do everything properly.
All right, Diane, if both of these are to get their verbals and be placed on the agenda, can you place the one that is giving permission to go to the ballot first, and then the second one would be the one I brought up first? Does that make sense? Are you following me?
I'm following you, but one is an ordinance and the other one is a resolution.
All right, never mind then.
Okay. I thought the same thing.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Anybody from finance? Ms. Littman?
Mr. Lewis, I would like to ask is what we see being spent from year to year, and I'll say 18, 19, and 20 is what is basically being collected, where we don't have any type of significant carryover from year to year. It's basically what taxes are being collected is what is being spent on our road paving and repair. Could I get confirmation of that?
Madam Mayor, from my understanding, we are dipping a little bit into carryover, but could you clarify?
Yes, so this year we were able to, I actually really wanted to do an additional $2 million, and you can all recall that. But we decided to pull it back, and we did about an additional 1.3, 1.4 million from our carryover. And we will be coming back to you in the new year to appropriate more funds than what we already have for 2021. We'll be coming back and asking you to appropriate some more money depending on the carryover for our roads. So we are putting down over $1 million. We promised $1 million. We're putting down more than $1 million on our roads.
Ms. Bonk, are you still with us?
So what is actually collected from this tax on an annual basis?
That's what I'm asking. Ms. Bonk, are you still with us?
Yes, I'm here.
So as Ms. Littman said, is the collections a little bit over 2 million still?
Yeah, it's right around there. I think we provided that information to Dave Maley. I don't have it in front of me, but he has all of those numbers for the previous years. Do you still have that, Dave?
Yes, I do. In 2017, the collection was $1,899,376.65. 2018, it was $2,089,327.43. In 2019, it was $2,110,067.71. And as of year to date, I believe that was as of Friday, the collection was $1,718,353.43.
And then we take a portion of that money, because not all of it goes straight to repaving. We do take a portion of that for other expenses within the street department, correct?
That is correct. And
that is,
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Bonk?
Yeah, that is correct. Yeah, that pays for everything out of the street, the 1201 fund, salary, benefits. But we also get other revenue in that fund. It isn't just income tax money.
Yes. Yeah, but we usually take, I don't know, what is like 100, 200,000 of that income tax money and put it into the streets.
Well, it all goes to the streets.
Well, yeah. Okay. All All right, any other questions? I'll give my verbals for both. I do think that we'll probably have some discussion about it, so I would imagine it will at least go to second reading. But I'll give my verbals for both.
Verbals, Megan Starrett.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
Mr. Gregor, are those verbals for, is that a verbal for both pieces?
Yes, verbal for both.
Thank you. All right, my next piece here, I think we had a change. I have here that it is please prepare an ordinance to appropriate $18,938 from vacant foreclosure and putting HMRP, but we got a replacement for that. And I believe Miss Walters is to speak to that.
Yes, that's correct. I apologize. Hi, yes, Ed. I attached the wrong attachment when I emailed that to be submitted, so I'm sorry about that. I clicked HMRP instead of home. They were right beside each other. So the actual legislation was sent by Diane earlier today, and that is for an appropriation for the home program. I am asking to appropriate $50,000 to the 1229 Home Fund, and that money is provided by Stark County Regional Planning Commission, as you know, as the lead of the home consortium. And we are going to need the appropriation to finish out the rest of the calendar year. We actually have 3 down payment assistance projects and 2 full rehabilitation projects in the works right now. And we have about $50,000, which is not going to be enough to last us through the end of the calendar year.
The home program is obviously a good program that gets used along with that HMRP. Does anyone have any questions regarding home? I provide my verbal for that.
Megan Starrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
All right, the next piece I have is request legislation authorizing the Director of Public Safety and Service of the City of Massillon to amend Ordinance 168/2019, salary and wage schedules for unclassified employees, supervisory classified employees, and miscellaneous schedule for part-time employees. This is to allow pay increases to take effect with the first pay period of 2021. Ms. Sylvester, did you want to speak to this?
Yes, I can speak to this. This is requesting the approval then to amend our wage schedules for the unclassified employees and the classified employees that are miscellaneous. This pay increase is included in the 2021 budget along with the pay increases that are required under the union contracts, and those rates and schedules have been approved, as I said, through the contracts, and those contracts were accepted through council. So this is the, as I said, the unclassified, classified, and the miscellaneous schedules then to be amended.
Any questions from Finance Committee? All right, I provide my verbal.
Megan Starrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
All right, transfers, and then we'll go to the question about virtual meetings. Transfers, we have a transfer from the municipal court, reducing their travel, seminar, and schooling by $2,500, reducing their supplies by $2,500, putting it into hospital eye dental, and to pay insurance costs through December 31st, 2020. I provide my verbal.
Starrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
Fire department, reducing the salary by $24,000, placing it into hospital eye dental, and then new fire equipment. This is to realign the budget to pay fire department health insurance costs and needed equipment for the fiscal year of 2020. Any questions? Ms. Littman?
Can we just ask what new equipment is being purchased?
Barb Sylvester, are you able to answer that question?
I don't have the exact specifics, but as Chief Burgesser explained when he was on the call, there is a lot of equipment that we have made purchases of for our fire department. And when we talk about PPE for safety, it's not always about the PPE to address COVID. It's the PPE needed in each department, as he talked about with the helmets and the armored suits for our fire department, if there would be a need for those as well. So specific, it may just be dollar amounts that are needed to finish the purchases that he's been making throughout the course of the year.
Thank you.
I provide my verbal.
Verbal, Sterrett.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
For the building department, reduction in unemployment by $1,200, gas and oil by $2,199.69, placing it into hospital eye and dental, and it's to pay building department health insurance costs through the end of the year. Provide my verbal.
Sterrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Health department reducing salary by $1,000, putting the hospital eye and dental, realign the budget for insurance costs through the end of the year. I provide my verbal.
Sterrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Police department salary of police reduced by $11,950, placing it into salary police clerks, placing it into PRS police, placing it into hospital eye and dental. It says to provide for shortages in accounts. Ms. Sylvester, I'm assuming that most of this is to cover the insurance costs through the end of the year, and then the PRS and police clerks just not get budgeted correctly for this year, or do you know?
I can let Lori respond to that.
Mr. Lewis, a lot of that has to do with the hospital eye and dental is the change in plans during the course of the year. We start out the year when we do the budget with what we currently have. And through the course of the year, we have plan changes or we may have addition to staff. So we could very well have somebody who came in on single coverage and got married through the course of the year, or came in on coverage with a spouse and had a child during the course of the year, and that does change the premiums for the hospital and dental and eye through the course of the year. So it has a lot to do with the mix of what is being offered and what the employees are taking, and if we may have any new hires.
Yeah, but with the salary for police clerks, is that just a minor adjustment because, I don't know, we were off a little bit? Is that all that is?
Well, I don't know. I apologize. I don't know exactly what that may be, but I can find that information out for you.
I mean, I'm still comfortable. I mean, it's under $1,000, so it can't be that big. I was just curious. I provide my verbal.
Verbal, Sterrett.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Next one, civil service, reducing hospital eye dental by $320, putting it into the salary to realign the budget for civil service. You give my verbal.
Verbal, Sterrett.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Income tax, PRS, reduction by 112, placing into Medicare. Just to realign the budget to have sufficient funds for the expenses related to Medicare due to a retirement payout. Verbal.
Sterrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Administration, reduction of accumulated sick by $4,100, placing it into IT services to realign the budget for 2020. Either Madam Mayor or Safety Service Director, is there a new IT service that we're obtaining for the $4,100?
There is not anything new. This is part of, through the IT service, some of the updates in the software that we had to do this year. and weren't aware of it basically when the budget piece was put into there. That and also the software updates and the protection softwares that we have to purchase. Some of them are on a year basis and some of them are on a 2-year basis as well.
All right, thank you. I give my verbal.
Starrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Next one, administration, building supplies reduction by 9,000, putting into building services. And this is for the maintenance department. Is there a specific purpose?
Mr.
Yes,
Lewis, I can speak. Oh,
go ahead.
Mr. Lewis, this is Lori. I can speak to that. We had a surplus in the supplies. We are moving it to the building services, and this is going towards the majority of it's going towards some elevator repair that we have to do in our building. So we put it into services where it's the appropriate account for us to take that out of.
Question.
Yes.
At the top, it says administration. Should that be the building department then?
No, it's administration.
Okay, thank you.
It's for building maintenance of the building that you're housed in and the building that the administration's housed in. It's for our maintenance and repairs.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
All right, building department, salary reduction by 10,000, placing into service and contracts.
Wait a minute, Ed, I need verbals on the.
Oh, I give my verbal.
Okay.
Starrett, verbal.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
All right, building department, reduce salary by 10,000, placing into service and contracts. This is to realign the 2020 budget for increased need for lawn works services. Give my verbal.
Verbal, Starrett.
Mike Gregg, verbal.
Thank you.
All right, and then we have the one that we held over. We'll continue to hold it until the economic development grants are decided upon, and then we can give verbals on those.
Okay, thank you.
The last piece for discussion that we have tonight is we did receive the communication from the mayor, which was from the legislative review or whatnot, stating that the extension of being able to meet virtually as a legislative body is coming to an end soon. And it is requesting that we provide a resolution, I assume asking the state to extend that courtesy that they have given us in order to continue to meet in a safe capacity while we continue to navigate these waters of the pandemic. I guess my question first would be to Mr. Bartos. You're still with us?
Yes. Yes.
Is this something that the offices of Mr. Richard would want to draft up for council? And if so, could we have something by Monday? Because I think there is a time sensitivity to this.
Have they provided a template, the group that's requesting it, or I didn't know, I didn't hear, did you say that particular groups requesting it, or is it just that the mayor is asking for it?
Madam Mayor, can you speak to where the information came from?
Sure. I received it in an email. It may be from the governor's assistant. I'd have to go back and look to give you the exact name. But it was just saying that if you'd like to continue to meet remotely due to COVID, you would need to pass a resolution and present it to the governor's office. It does share a template with council to be able to utilize that. I don't know if Terry's still on the line, but the numbers are going up. Our hospitalizations in the county are going up, and many people are becoming infected in our area. And so I would and Terry can speak if she can't tonight, maybe next week, if she's already hung up. But I think that she would agree with me. And so I think it would be prudent to do this for the time being until at least we start going the other direction.
Yeah, looking here, it looks like it came from the Ohio Municipal League, and it provides a template that was recently passed by Grove City. So maybe we can get that into your hands and we can have something for Monday.
Yeah, sure. That's Mr. Lewis. That's perfect. The reason I ask is usually when these kind of requests go out, they go out in a kind of blast email fashion with a suggested form. So that's why I asked. So yeah, if somebody could forward the email to me, I'd be happy to draft up the resolution and even follow up with the individual if necessary who sent the email.
Diane, can you get that to Mr. Bartos?
Yes, I just sent it to him.
And then I'm thinking that this probably again would fall under rules and courts. I don't know where else it would fall.
Okay.
Mr. Bartos can weigh into that once he gets his eyes and starts working on it, but I don't see what other committee would really address a resolution asking the state to extend this for us.
Yes, Bill, I just emailed that to you.
Perfect. Yeah, I received it.
Okay.
Mr. Lewis, Mr. Hernkane here.
Yes.
So we want to, it's a resolution. I just want to make sure I understand this. It's a resolution to allow us to continue to have our meetings remote when for the last 2 months, we've already made arrangements, bought plexiglass, got the equipment to go back to council chambers, right?
Yes, I think though the reason I would be in favor of this is because I kind of see where you're heading with the question is one, if we as a county were to advance into purple, we would purple, as a county, according to what the state is doing, we would probably want to pull back from a little bit of that. And two, even these initiatives that we are doing aren't allowing the public to come sit, so we would still have to offer a virtual option for the public. So I think it would probably save us and allow us to have that flexibility, would be my thoughts.
Okay. Thank you.
And Mr. Lewis, may I add, I don't know that the numbers have changed as far as 10 per room, but 9 members plus council president plus Diane is 11. So it's still difficult. And like I said, our numbers are going up, not down. And I just want to keep everyone safe. So not that I have any say in this, but I just shared the email that was sent to me with council members. It is your decision, but I just wanted to let you know what my thoughts were. And of course, I think Terry would have the same thoughts, but she can speak for herself.
Ms. Lippman, you had a question?
Yes, I just wanted to remind you that we have ordinance number 110 that had second reading. It's still on the agenda. I didn't know if you had addressed that and I missed it, or.
What's the title?
It is actually the improvement of certain real estate located in the city of Massillon to be a public purpose. It's the TIF. It's the TIF that we talked about for improvement.
Yeah, it's going to third reading.
Yes, it's 110/2020.
Yeah, I don't have any updates on that. Mr. Maley, do you have any updates on that?
Mr. Lewis, at the current time, I'm probably going to have an update at the next meeting. I'm not quite sure how it's going to play out. We may ask you to table it.
That's fine.
Thank you.
Any other discussions this evening? Mr. Tharrett?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Lewis. At the last council meeting, while we were working with the zoning issue. A couple questions were asked, but I don't know if the mayor was able to hear them. But there was no response from the mayor or the safety service director about the question about their reasons for voting against the zoning. One or both of them give us some insight on that, please.
Well, Mr. Theory, thank you for the question. I actually tried to answer, but someone spoke over me and went on to asking someone else a question. So I just waited to see if anyone would ask me, and they did not. So one of the reasons, there are many reasons why I voted no, but one of the reasons was that we had asked Mr. Sanders to wait. And it was rushed through to council. I asked him to wait, and then council sent it back to the planning commission. I just thought that it wasn't done properly, and that we were trying to rush something through that wasn't vetted in the planning commission properly. And so that was my reason to vote no on that. I'll give you a second reason, is the residents spoke loudly. And it has always been something that I think is important, is that you listen to the residents. And if I would have been able to speak that night, I would have told council that those types of decisions are the hardest decisions that council members will ever make. You're being pulled in both directions. You understand the business, but yet you're listening to the residents who vote for you. And you will never have a harder decision when it's pitted between our residents and a business. It is a tough, tough decision. I do have to say that I agree with Mrs. Lippman. She made a comment about there is more common ground to be found, and I agree with that. And I think that it should go back to the table if Mr. Sanders continues to want that rezoned, and he needs to work directly with the neighborhood. And that's how you get a win-win-win for everyone. It's a win for the neighbors, it's a win for the business, and it's a win for the city. So those are some of the reasons why I voted no.
Thank you. I was just curious. This has been how many years of communicating with the neighborhoods, neighbors, and compromise after compromise, with no other offers coming in from any other direction. But you're still looking for more compromises. I'm not understanding where they can come from. And I think Ms. Lippman has something to say too.
Well, Mr. Theory, I will let you know that the Planning Commission is just an advisory commission. We give our advice, we make our vote, but council has the ultimate decision. And so it's not something for me to argue about. You asked the question, I answered it. And as I said, it is a very, very hard decision. But those neighbors live there. The business does not. The business is there and the owner lives somewhere else. And so when you are living and representing the city and living in the city, it's very important to listen to your residents. And I will always go back on that with any decision, is listen to the residents. So, but I'm not here to argue about my choice. It was council's decision. Our opinion was an advisory opinion, and it went to council. So I guess if you want to argue about that, you can take that up with your council members.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Since that was already a discussion point that we had up to last week, I would rather us just move on at this point. I don't know if we have anybody, but I'll say it. You know, this comes to the time of public speaks. If there's anyone here that would like to speak to council, please state your name and address, and please keep it under 3 minutes. And you may speak now if you would like to.
Yes, Mr. President Pro Tem Ed Lewis. Hello?
Yes.
Mr. Lewis?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. DeLuca.
Okay. LJ DeLuca, 2954 Veterans Boulevard, Southeast Massillon, Ohio. Oh my gosh, just can't believe what I heard here. I just want to go, I'm not here to argue, but I'm going to ask some questions. Nobody has to answer. It's something here. This isn't what I was going to talk about, but with regard to Madam Mayor, the Massillon Planning Commission, not only did she vote no against it, so did Barb Sylvester. She voted no against it. It was properly vetted. Mr. Sanders bent over backwards with it. Let me tell you something. The mayor just really didn't do a good job as far as the business and letting these people come in here. It was more of a mob lynching, a mob thing, and I didn't like it and don't appreciate it. But also I want to talk, that's not what I wanted to talk about, but I had to just step in there, Mr. Lewis and Madam Mayor, because you're misleading some of these people here in Massillon. I want to talk about the human trafficking thing for the task force. The mayor said she's working diligently, want to do this for many, many years, and they found 45 kids in Columbus. And she said about the officers, she wants to do this with the dog calls and the cat calls, and she wants to place an officer on each of these task force in the future. And she did say, and I'm paraphrasing, we'll be happy to discuss animal control, but when you look at the drugs in the city, when you look at the sex trafficking, we need to place our officers in those positions in our future. Now, that Mr. Lewis and all the other council members and my fellow citizens here, that statement raises a lot of questions to me. A lot of our people here call me and we share our notes, we share our due diligence, and we share our trust and integrity. I just have a long time since you've been here, Mayor, you never brought that up, but you said you knew about it for years. I want to know if it's possible for you as mayor of Massillon to place a Massillon police officer on the task force. What's the process required for it? How long does it take? We had a carryover for many years here. 2020, what was it, 5.5 million? And I want to know what specific measures you're going to do about it now, Mayor, since you did bring that up. That was back on October 28th, 2020 in the meeting that you stated, and I have it recorded right here. And I also want to know about the proceeds of the sale of Affinity Properties to be auctioned off by my friends at Kiko Real Estate on November 18, 2020 to the general fund and be available for appropriation to establish maybe a Massillon human sex trafficking force that you have there. The Kiko people are legendary. Peter and also Rusty. They've never done a hospital before. But my other question here that's coming up, and this hits a button for me. Peter Kiko Sr. said that there's 10 parties seriously interested in the Affinity property. My goodness, I have to jog my memory here. I've heard about that some time ago. And my fellow citizens, there's a lack of urgency, a lack of good judgment on the part of the mayor. An Affinity Medical Center falls into that category, and it does. What's going on here? The ship is on fire, the ship is sinking, and the captain is dancing in the ballroom, and his feet are getting wet. The ship is Massillon, Ohio. And finally, when I end up here, because I'm only allotted to 3 minutes where you guys get to talk forever, back to the animal control. We had, I want the mayor to take care of it. It's a very urgent issue. A couple of years ago, Vicki Whiting, we heard about her. She 1 cat, 4 cats, 12 cats, whatever it was. She lives on the southwest side residence here. She went to the mayor's office and she turned to the city for help. And I'm glad you did, Miss Whiting, but it wasn't a very good answer. And in summation here, we had, I want to thank Councilman Ted Hurricane. He talked about the animal control officer, but sadly not in time for Lulu. That was Mr. James Walker's pet where Lulu was killed, okay? We eliminated this position, Mayor, in 2012. I talked about this when my ward council member had a meeting over there on her side, Jill Kramer, and you said you were going to do something. You told me personally you're going to talk to Chief Moser. What is the matter with Massillon? What's the matter with the mayor, and what's the matter with the administration? When are you going to do something about the animal control officer, Mayor? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. Anyone else like to speak? All right, that's all for our session this evening. See you guys next Monday.
Ed, before we leave, the executive session for next Monday, is that going to be right before the regular meeting, or is it going to be at the end of the meeting? I don't want to schedule 2 separate meetings. It's going to be.
Yeah. Well, an executive session has to be a separate meeting because the only people that can come into it would be us.
Okay.
So we'd have to figure out a way to keep the regular meeting open while members of council enter a separate meeting and then come back to the original meeting.
Okay.
So we'll probably have to talk.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, everyone. See you next Monday.
Good night.
Good night.